Ethan Carter stood in his bedroom in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, surrounded by half-packed suitcases and a Penn State hoodie. For 18 years, he had been the reliable son, the one with the straight A's and the graveyard shifts at the local hardware store. He stared at his laptop, heart racing with the quiet thrill of independence. Everything was set, or so he thought. To double-check his tuition wire, Ethan called the bank, ready to confirm the $187,000 his grandparents had meticulously saved since the day he was born. He had the routing numbers memorized like a mantra. But when the teller finally spoke, her voice was hollow. "Mr. Carter, your current balance is $1,984. In that freezing moment, the golden future he'd built brick by brick didn't just crack. It vanished. The silence on the other end of the line wasn't just a pause. It was a vast, echoing canyon that swallowed Ethan's breath whole. "I'm sorry, could you repeat that?" he asked, his voice cracking slightly. He even let out a short, nervous laugh, certain that a decimal point had been misplaced or a system error had occurred. "There's supposed to be $187,000 in there. It's a custodial account from my grandparents." The teller's voice returned, now heavy with a professional kind of pity. "Mr. Carter, I've refreshed the screen twice. The current balance is exactly $1,984. Ethan felt the room in Oak Ridge tilt. He gripped the edge of his desk, his knuckles turning white against the wood. Where did it go? There must be a paper trail. As the teller began to list the transactions, the reality hit him like a physical blow to the chest. Over the last 9 months, there had been 11 separate withdrawals ranging from $8,000 to $14,000 each. The names on the authorization forms were identical every single time: Sandra Carter, his mother. While the ceiling fan hummed overhead and the afternoon sun hit the carpet, Ethan realized his entire future had been dismantled behind his back. The money meant for his engineering degree, his housing, and his bridge to a better life had been siphoned away, one signature at a time, by the person he was supposed to trust most. Ethan stepped out of his bedroom, his legs feeling like lead as he descended the stairs to the living room. There sat Sandra Carter, perched on the floral sofa with a mug of herbal tea, watching a home renovation show as if it were just another Tuesday in Oak Ridge. The contrast between his internal devastation and her domestic bliss was nauseating. "Mom, I just called the bank about my tuition wire," Ethan said, his voice trembling but direct. "Where is the money? Why is the balance under $2,000? Sandra didn't flinch. She took a slow sip of her tea before looking up with an expression of practiced, weary patience. "Oh, Ethan. I was going to explain that. I just moved the funds into a different investment vehicle, something more stable for your long-term future. You know how volatile the markets have been." It was a lie, polished and delivered with the ease of someone who had rehearsed it for months. Ethan felt a surge of cold fury. He gestured toward the window, where his sister Kayla's brand-new SUV sat gleaming in the driveway. The car his parents claimed was a work bonus. Stable, like Kayla's new car, or the down payment on that condo she just signed for? Ethan's voice rose. "That was my money, Mom. Grandpa James and Grandma Carol saved that for 18 years. You had no right." Suddenly, the mask of the doting mother snapped. Sandra stood up, her eyes narrowing. "How dare you speak to me about rights? Your sister was struggling, Ethan. She needed a win. You've always been the strong one, the one who can figure things out on his own. It is incredibly selfish of you to begrudge your own sister a chance at stability just because you want a fund that you don't even really need." In that moment, Ethan realized the truth. In his mother's eyes, his competence wasn't a virtue to be rewarded. It was an excuse to rob him. The air in the living room felt thick, almost unbreathable, as Sandra began to pace. She didn't look like a woman caught in a lie. She looked like a martyr. "Ethan, you've always had this streak of arrogance," she said, her voice dropping into a tone of disappointed pity. "You've been so successful, so perfect, that you've forgotten what it means to be a family. Kayla was drowning. She was facing an eviction, and she's fragile. She doesn't have your drive." It was a masterclass in gaslighting. She wasn't just defending her theft. She was reframing Ethan's hard work as a weapon he was using against his own sister. "You're making this about money," she sighed. when it's really about your lack of empathy. You'll always land on your feet. You're the one with the scholarships and the job offers. Why can't you be happy that your sister finally has a roof over her head? Ethan turned to his father, Gerald, who had been sitting in his armchair the entire time, staring intently at a muted news broadcast. Dad? Are you seriously okay with this? You knew? Gerald didn't look up. He adjusted his glasses, his shoulders hunched as if trying to shrink into the upholstery. He offered no defense, no explanation, only a heavy, complicit silence. He was choosing the peace of a quiet house over the justice his son deserved. In that moment, Ethan realized he wasn't just fighting his mother. He was a stranger in a house that had traded his future for his sister's comfort. The realization was colder than any winter. He was the reliable one only because it made him the easiest one to rob. That night, the house in Oak Ridge felt like a tomb. Ethan sat in the dark of his room, the walls he'd decorated with academic awards now feeling like a mockery of his effort. He stepped out to the hallway to get a glass of water, moving silently as he had for years to avoid disturbing the peace. But as he passed the laundry room, he heard his mother's voice, hushed but sharp with an conspiratorial edge. "I'm telling you, Kayla, just keep your head down," Sandra whispered into her phone. "If anyone asks about the SUV, it was a performance bonus from the firm. Ethan had a little flare-up today, but he's already calming down. He's the sensible one. He'll get over it once he realizes he's got no other choice but to find another way. He's always been our little survivor." The words felt like ice water down his spine. It wasn't just a mistake or a desperate family move. It was a calculated, cold-blooded script. They were counting on his resilience to justify their theft. They were using his strength as a reason to bleed him dry. Ethan didn't go for the water. He walked back into his room and locked the door. His hands were shaking, but his mind was suddenly, terrifyingly clear. He didn't call his best friend to vent, and he didn't post a cryptic status on social media. Instead, he pulled up his contacts and dialed Grandpa James. When the old man answered on the second ring, Ethan's voice was steady. "Grandpa? It's Ethan. I need you to listen to me very carefully. Mom emptied the UTMA account, all of it, and she's not planning on putting it back." The silence on the other end lasted 10 seconds, but when Grandpa'd like grinding stone. "Ethan, stay exactly where you are. I'm calling my lawyer in the morning." The invisible child was done being quiet. Ethan wasn't just losing a college fund, he was gaining a backbone. In the following days, Ethan didn't yell, and he didn't slam doors. He became a ghost in his own home, moving with a calculated silence that his mother mistook for submission. While Sandra went about her life, sipping tea and scrolling through furniture catalogs for Kayla's new place, Ethan was building a digital fortress. Every evening, he met Grandpa James at a quiet diner 2 towns over, bringing a folder that grew thicker by the day. The breakthrough came when they dug into the original custodial paperwork from Millfield Bank. Grandpa James's eyes narrowed as he examined the recent authorization forms. "That's not my handwriting, Ethan," he whispered, his voice trembling with a mix of grief and fury. They discovered that after Grandma Carol passed away, Sandra hadn't just talked her way onto the account. She had allegedly forged Grandpa James's signature on several key documents to gain primary-secondary status. Back at the house, Ethan kept his phone's voice recorder running in his pocket during every family talk. He captured his mother's sharp warnings. "If you blow this up, Ethan, you're destroying this family's reputation over a few dollars. Don't be the reason your sister loses everything." These weren't just family squabbles anymore. With the help of Franklin Webb, the county's most formidable attorney, the pieces clicked into place. This was a paper trail of premeditated fraud and custodial misappropriation. As Ethan sat in the lawyer's office, looking at the mountain of evidence, he realized the beige house on Crescent Drive wasn't a home, it was a crime scene. The invisible child had spent his life watching from the sidelines, and now he had seen everything. Grandpa James didn't believe in shouting, but as a retired high school principal in Millfield, he knew exactly how to make a voice carry. He didn't just want restitution, he wanted the truth to be undeniable. He reached out to Denise Harmon, a local investigative reporter and former student who respected him deeply. Within days, a camera crew was set up in Grandpa James's sunlit kitchen, the original bank ledgers and forged documents spread out like a map of a betrayal. When it was Ethan's turn to speak, he didn't look like the quiet kid anymore. He sat tall, his expression calm but resolute. Denise leaned in, her voice softening. Ethan, many people would say this is just a private family matter. Some might even call it heartless to take your own mother to court over a college fund. How do you respond to that? Ethan looked directly into the lens, his eyes steady. This isn't about the money anymore, he said, his voice echoing through the quiet house. Money can be earned back. What I'm fighting for is the 18 years of truth that my mother stole from me. I spent my life being told I was the strong one, so she could use my strength as a reason to overlook me. I'm not suing my mother because I'm angry. I'm doing it because silence is what allowed this to happen. I'm done giving her my permission to disappear me. The segment aired on the Thursday evening news under the headline, "A Legacy Stolen, Local Grandfather Accuses Daughter of $187,000 Trust Fraud." By the time the credits rolled, the carefully constructed mask of the Carter family had shattered in front of the entire county. Ethan wasn't just a victim anymore. He was the narrator of his own life. The courtroom in Millfield didn't feel like a place for healing. It felt like a cold, sterile theater where a lifelong charade was finally reaching its final act. Sandra Carter sat at the defense table, dressed in a conservative navy suit, her face a mask of wounded motherhood. She spent the first hour dabbing her eyes with a tissue, whispering to her attorney about family misunderstandings and desperate times. She played the role of the devoted mother being betrayed by an ungrateful son to perfection, until the evidence began to speak. The atmosphere shifted the moment Franklin Webb hit play on the voice recordings. The courtroom filled with Sandra's own voice, sharp and calculating, instructing Kayla to lie about the SUV and mocking Ethan's resilience. Then came the forensic handwriting expert, who laid out the forged signatures on the UTMA documents side by side with Grandpa James's actual handwriting. The misunderstanding vanished, replaced by the cold reality of premeditated fraud. The final blow came from an unexpected source. Ethan's father, Gerald, took the stand. Under the crushing weight of potential perjury charges, his silence finally broke. He admitted he had known about the withdrawals and had helped hide the bank statements to keep the peace. He looked at Ethan just once, his eyes full of a shame that arrived 18 years too late. When the judge pronounced the word felony, it hit the room like a physical weight. Sandra didn't cry then. She went rigid, her jaw set in a hard, defiant line. The court ordered a freeze on Kayla's assets, including the condo and the car, to begin the process of restitution. As Ethan walked out of the courthouse, he didn't feel like he had won a prize. He felt like he had finally stepped out of a shadow, even if the sunlight was cold, and the bridge behind him was nothing but ash. As the news of the court's decision rippled through Oak Ridge and beyond, something Ethan never expected began to happen. The story didn't just stay a local scandal, it became a mirror for thousands of others. His inbox flooded with messages from people who called themselves the invisible ones. The siblings who stayed quiet, the children who carried the family's burdens while being stepped over. For the first time in his life, Ethan wasn't just the reliable one in a vacuum. He was part of a community that finally saw him. The university's response was swift and surprisingly human. After reviewing the legal findings and Ethan's impeccable academic record, the scholarship committee reached out directly. They didn't just offer words of sympathy, they awarded him a full 4-year merit scholarship, covering the tuition his mother had stolen. They even paired him with a counselor specializing in family trauma, recognizing that the cost of his strength had been his peace of mind. A local teacher, who remembered Ethan from his graveyard shifts at the hardware store, started a community fund that raised over $60,000 in a single weekend. Total strangers were investing in a future his own parents had tried to sell off. Ethan realized a profound, bittersweet truth. By refusing to be the good, quiet son his mother demanded, he had finally allowed the world to be good to him. The bridge to his old life was gone, but in its place, 1,000 hands were reaching out to help him build something far more. It is winter now. Ethan sits by his dorm window at Penn State, watching the first snow dust the quad where students hurry between classes. His desk is sparse, holding only a single framed photo. Him and Grandpa James at graduation, both squinting into the Tennessee sun. His phone buzzes, a missed call from his mother, followed by a biting text from Kayla. The family is destroyed. Are you happy now? Ethan doesn't delete it, but he doesn't reply either. He simply flips the phone face down, silencing the noise of a past that no longer owns him. He taps his laptop to start a video call with Grandpa James, whose face lights up instantly. Ethan realized that setting a boundary wasn't about burning a bridge, it was about building a door, one that only opens from his side. This time, he's the one holding the key.